You're standing in your kitchen at 7 in the morning, coffee brewing, toast in the toaster, and somewhere in your gut, trillions of bacteria are waking up too, making decisions about how you're going to feel today. For decades, we thought of the brain as the command center. The gut, just a digestion machine. But that picture is changing, and the science is genuinely remarkable. Today, we're exploring what might be the most important conversation happening in neuroscience right now, the gut-brain axis, and a January 2026 study that's rewriting the textbooks. Here's what we're going to cover. First, what actually happens when gut bacteria talk to your brain. It's wilder than you'd think. Then, the Northwestern study that made headlines this year. Scientists transferred gut bacteria between species. What happened next surprised everyone. And finally, practical things you can actually do. Dietary strategies that emerging research suggests may support both your gut and your mood. Let's start with the basics. Your gut is home to roughly 38 trillion bacteria. That's more bacterial cells than human cells in your entire body. These microbes aren't just sitting there. They're producing chemicals, sending signals, and maintaining an active communication line with your brain. 24 hours a day. The highway they use, it's called the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in your body, running from your brainstem all the way down to your intestines. A direct line of communication. Here's something that still surprises people. Roughly 95% of your body's serotonin, that's the neurotransmitter famous for regulating mood, is produced in your gut, not your brain. Gut bacteria can also influence production of dopamine, acetylcholine, and GABA. These aren't minor players. They're the neurotransmitters that shape everything from motivation to calm. So when researchers started asking whether gut health might affect mental health, it wasn't a wild guess. There were biological reasons to suspect a connection. The field even has a name now, Psychobiotics, the study of how bacteria might influence brain function. And it's gone from fringe science to front-page news. In January 2026, a team at Northwestern University published something extraordinary. They took gut microbes from different primate species and transplanted them into mice. What happened next was remarkable. The mice's brains began to show gene expression patterns resembling those of the original primate hosts. Gut bacteria were literally reshaping brain genetics. Even more striking, mice that received microbes from smaller-brained primates showed gene expression patterns associated with ADHD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and autism spectrum conditions. Now, and this is important, we're talking about mice, not humans. The gap between a mouse study and human treatment is enormous, but the implications are significant. This builds on years of accumulating evidence. A 2025 meta-analysis in BMC Psychiatry examined 72 randomized controlled trials, that's over 6,000 participants, studying probiotics and mental health. The Frontiers in Microbiome's journal published a systematic review finding that depression is associated with reduced microbial diversity and high levels of specific bacteria, called firmicutes. Meanwhile, anxiety has been linked to low levels of bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, compounds that help maintain the gut barrier and reduce inflammation. So the picture emerging from the research is this. A healthy, diverse gut microbiome seems to correlate with better mental health outcomes. But this is a big but. Correlation isn't causation. Here's what we know for certain. The gut microbiome has emerged as a significant modulator of brain function. That's a quote from the research, and it's carefully worded for a reason. The brain is incredibly complex. Mental health conditions have genetic components, environmental factors, social determinants. The microbiome is one piece of a much larger puzzle. The UCLA health research team found that resilience, your ability to bounce back from stress, is shaped by activity patterns in both the gut microbiome and the brain working together. So what does all this mean for you? Well, this is where it gets complicated, because the supplement industry has already jumped all over this research. Probiotic supplements are a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the marketing often runs way ahead of the science. So let's look at what the evidence actually supports. The meta-analysis of 72 trials found that probiotics showed statistically significant effects on anxiety and depression symptoms. And here's the catch, the effect sizes were modest. There was also significant heterogeneity between studies, different strains, different doses, different populations. The research isn't yet specific enough to say, take this exact probiotic for this exact condition. Critics of the probiotic supplement market have a point. Without knowing what's actually in your gut, taking a generic probiotic is, as one researcher put it, shooting in the dark. So here's what the researchers are actually recommending, and it's less glamorous than a pill. They suggest starting with diet. Specifically, dietary fiber from diverse plant sources. Fiber feeds your beneficial gut bacteria more effectively than probiotic supplements. Those bacteria ferment the fiber into short-chain fatty acids, the compounds linked to better mental health outcomes. The research also suggests including fermented foods regularly: yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi. These provide live beneficial bacteria informs your body recognizes. One practical approach, try counting plant foods for a week. Research suggests aiming for 30 different plant species weekly may optimize gut diversity. That sounds like a lot, but herbs and spices count. Ultra-processed foods, on the other hand, have been shown to decrease microbial diversity. The more of your diet that comes from packages, the less diverse your gut community becomes. But here's where I want to be really clear, and this is important. If you're struggling with anxiety or depression, probiotics aren't a replacement for professional treatment. The Nature commentary on this research states it directly. Probiotic supplementation and dietary changes represent accessible, non-invasive strategies. But they work as complements to, not replacements for, established treatments. Talk to your healthcare provider, especially if you're on medication. Some gut interventions can affect drug absorption. This isn't something to experiment with alone. Now, the research in this field is evolving rapidly. What we know today will probably be refined significantly in the coming years. That's how science works. The first study showing gut bacteria influence behavior in mice came in 2004. Large-scale human studies linking specific bacteria to depression arrived in 2019. The Northwestern study landed just this January. In scientific terms, that's incredibly fast progress. But in patient terms, it means we're still in the early chapters. We don't have all the answers yet. So what can you actually do today? Start small. If you're interested in supporting your gut health, consider adding 1 or 2 fermented foods to your weekly routine. Try swapping one processed snack for a piece of fruit or some vegetables. Focus on variety over volume. And pay attention to how your digestion and your mood responds over a few weeks. The Mediterranean diet keeps showing up in gut health research. Not because it's magical, but because it's naturally high in fiber, fermented foods, and plant diversity. Your grandmother probably knew something. One thing the researchers emphasize: sustainable changes matter more than dramatic interventions. A complete diet overhaul that you abandon after a month is worth less than small shifts you maintain for years. And if you're someone dealing with mental health challenges, remember, gut health interventions work best as one part of a comprehensive approach. They're not a standalone solution. If this kind of research interests you, we cover evidence-based health topics like this every week. Hit subscribe if you want to keep up with the science as it develops. Let's come back to that Northwestern study for a moment, because there's a detail we haven't fully explored, and it's genuinely thought-provoking. The study showed gut bacteria influencing brain gene expression in real time, not over generations, in the lifespan of individual animals. That's a much faster feedback loop than anyone expected. The implication? Our gut bacteria might be influencing our brains continuously in ways we're only beginning to understand. Every meal, potentially, shifts the chemical conversation. The lead researchers noted that this opens potential avenues for intervention. If gut bacteria can reshape brain gene expression, targeted microbiome therapies might one day address neurological conditions at a foundational level. But let's keep perspective. We're in the very early stages. The path from mouse studies to human treatments typically takes decades, and most candidates don't make it through clinical trials. So what's the balanced takeaway? The gut-brain connection is real, the science is exciting, and there are reasonable dietary strategies that may support both your gut and mental health. But anyone selling you a specific supplement that targets mood through the microbiome is probably getting ahead of the research. The science doesn't support that level of specificity yet. Eat diverse plants. Include fermented foods when you can. Minimize ultra-processed foods. Get enough sleep. Your gut bacteria have circadian rhythms too. And work with your healthcare provider on the rest. We started this episode in your kitchen with your morning coffee. Trillions of bacteria starting their day alongside you. Now you know a little more about what they might be doing. The gut-brain axis is real. The research is accumulating. And while we don't have all the answers, we're asking better questions than ever before. Thanks for listening. This is Better Health Faster, where we follow the science, acknowledge what we don't know, and give you practical strategies that might actually help. Take care of yourself. And remember, consult your doctor before making significant changes to your health routine. See you next time. One final thought from the research. The Frontiers Review notes that dietary adjustments, probiotic supplementation, and even fecal microbiota transplantation represent accessible strategies for potentially supporting mental health. The key word there is potentially. The researchers are careful with their language because they respect the complexity. Good science means saying, we don't know when we don't know. Your gut and your brain are in constant conversation. The research suggests you might have some influence over what they're saying to each other. That's worth exploring. Thoughtfully, patiently, with guidance. This field will keep evolving. 5 years from now, we'll know more. 10 years from now, we might have targeted treatments. For now, the fundamentals, diverse diet, fermented foods, working with doctors, remain your best bet. The gut-brain revolution isn't about quick fixes or supplement stacks. It's about understanding that our bodies are ecosystems, complex, interconnected, and still full of mysteries. So here's my final suggestion. Be curious, not anxious about this. Your microbiome is part of you. Understanding it better is a gift, not another thing to worry about. As the UCLA health team noted, resilience is shaped by activity in both the gut microbiome and the brain, working together. You're not just feeding your body, you're tending a relationship. Until next time, take care of that ecosystem inside you. It's doing more than you ever realized, and it's been listening all along.